Great. Welcome, everybody. And my name is Sue Grinnell, and I'm with the Public Health Institute.
Sorry.
And this is our second of two discussions around the practice of Photovoice. The first presentation that we had was a couple of weeks ago that Joanna shared the methodology and gave everyone an assignment to go out, should you choose to do that, and take pictures in your community of things that you're proud of and that you really love and like about your community. I know that not everybody was able to do that, which is perfectly fine, because today I think the discussion really is about this method and you know, hearing from people, right, how it was and kind of the showed method. And then we wanted to, I think, have a discussion about how you might use this, what kind of ideas that you might be having. So really excited about today. So I'm going to turn it over to Joanna.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. And I think most of the people on the call actually submit photos. So I'm really, really grateful for that. Thank you. This session, as opposed to last time I found myself talking an awful lot. It felt a little bit lecture-y, and this is definitely not going to be lecture-y. I am going to look to you for your reactions to what it felt like to do this, to ways you might be able to implement it, to other people's pictures. And one thing I will say before we get started, in general, when you have a reaction to a picture, there's this tendency to sort of want to say something really deep and important, like this picture makes me feel whatever, and I just want to like completely relieve you of that burden. And when I say, what does this picture make you feel like, happy or good, is an entirely appropriate response. It's really just like, what kind of sensations or emotions or thoughts does this bring up for you? And that will definitely be part of it. So I am going to stop showing video, and I am going to start showing our slides, and I just want to make sure that that is working. Is that what you're seeing, slides, everyone?
Yes.
Great. Okay, cool. So as we go through today, what we're going to be talking about is the experience that you had, and then we'll actually go through the images that you all submit. Thank you so much for doing that. And then we'll talk about if this were a group of images that were submit, how would we best use them as a group? And then different ways that you might use Photovoice within your own system, within your own group. Because what we did this time is one version of it, but there's tons of different ways to use it. So we'll talk about that also. We are a very small group. I invite you to speak up a lot. Feel free to interrupt me, dive right in. It'll be so much better if this is more robust conversation. So my first question to you, and I know Ed and Kim, you both were out there taking pictures, and I know Sue, you were too, and Dana, I think you were too, although they weren't in my collection.
Yes.
How did it feel? Did it feel forced? Did it feel hard? Did it feel easy? Because of course you have lots of things you're proud of. What did it feel like?
I'll jump in. For me, I came into the school, and we were at a middle school, so I was trying to get some images of what the sense might feel like for someone coming into the school. And it felt a little intrusive because the staff were wondering, like, what are you doing here? Taking pictures around the school. And it was fine, but it felt a little bit like I should be giving them some kind of explanation.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm going to go ahead and say you were taking pictures of signs. Mm-hmm. So if you were taking pictures of people, I'm guessing it would feel even more intrusive, right?
Right. Yeah, definitely. I thought about doing that, but I you know, the secretary, for instance, she's one of the welcoming faces, but I didn't go there.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And for photographers and documentary video people, like that sense of just pushing past that awkwardness is a big part of the job description, actually. So I know what you're talking about there. How about you, Ed? How did it feel?
Well, I'm kind of an odd case. I've been writing marketing and training materials for 20 plus years. And so when write text, I always have a picture in my head of what I'm writing looks like. So it was actually fairly easy to go out and think of places to shoot the picture that was going to illustrate the concept I wanted to get across.
Oh, that's cool. You had great text with your pictures. Did you write the text in your head first and then go get the pictures?
Yes. Well,
Awesome.
I drafted in my head of the concept I wanted to get across, and then from the photo, matched the concept to the image.
Cool. Thank you. Kelly, I didn't get any pictures from you. Did you have any sort of picture ideas in your mind as you were engaged in this?
I didn't actually have a chance to go out and take photos, but I was really interested in the last conversation that we had, so I just wanted to jump on the phone and hear how it went for other people and maybe get past that initial hurdle of like, I don't know how to do this.
Awesome. No problem at all that you didn't take them. I know between the fact that everyone is crazy busy and the fact it's a little bit intimidating, no big deal. I am a little curious. Did you not take pictures because you were intimidated or because life got in the way?
I think it's a little bit of both.
Totally fair. Totally fair. If there are things that you could specify about what makes it intimidating, that would be helpful because we would know sort of both for you, but also as we address groups, what makes this easier to do, right? And you don't have to do that now, but it's something to think about. Just the barriers that we want to anticipate for the people that we're sending out with camera. So thank you for those of you who did turn in pictures. And Sue, you're not on this list, but you should be. Thank you for that. That's a little forward of who we're going to look at, whose work we're going to look at here. And in general, as we go through the pictures, we'll look at all of them before we talk about them. And then we'll hear from the photographer about what they were looking at, what they were trying to describe. And then we'll discuss them as a group and see if those images really evoke what the photographer was intending to show and what slice of the larger picture those pictures bring out or evoke. Does that make sense? Pretty clear? I hope so. Cool. Thanks, Dana. I like that. Got the thumbs up there. Okay, so we're going to start with Kim's pictures from Humboldt County. And I'll just go through these slowly and then we'll have a chance to hear from her. So Kim, I'll go through all of them first. We'll give it a moment. Kim, do you want to talk about your pictures a little bit?
I took many pictures and I just submitted the 3 that I had. We're a brand new clinic to this middle school as of August last year. And so we've been seeing the different challenges that the students are faced, getting to know the students. And we do see a lot of, there's a lot of welcoming messaging around the school. And I think they do try, the staff and faculty and the principal have in their hearts that they want to create this environment, but we hear from the students at the school who are struggling, all of the same, sexual identity, homelessness, food security, trauma in the home, loneliness, bullying. We hear of all of these things. We see those themes in our clinic. And so we're trying to develop this peer education group. So I wondered if this might be a way to present the messaging to the students and get some feedback from them of what I don't know how to approach it, but is this what they're actually feeling?
Mm-hmm. I think what you're describing, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, is the school is trying so hard and there's all of these positive images, but you have indication, you have evidence that that's not what the students are feeling. Right?
Yes, yes.
So the idea here is it's almost the discrepancy between the images you have and the images you're hearing about.
Yeah, and I could be wrong, but I would be curious to know what the students perceive when they, you know, what they see when they walk through the walls of the school.
Yeah. Yeah. So before we get to the student's perspective, because that's super important, right now, as viewers of Photovoice, we are just seeing your perspective, right? We're seeing these 3 images. And I'm curious from the other people on the call, what do you see when you see these images? What do they say to you?
The first image I wrote down that there's a strong sense of community and belonging.
Mm-hmm.
The other images, I just started jotting adjectives. What popped into my head was inclusive, inviting, non-judgmental, and accepting.
Cool. Thank you. I think that's very much the point, isn't it, Kimberly?
Yes, definitely. So, and I think, you know, the messaging may come from adults. I'm not as, I haven't developed the relationships with the school staff as much as we have with the kids, and they're middle school, so they're going through all kinds of challenges.
This is Kelly Marie.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to say, like, I kind of have an opinion on this. I have a transgender child myself, so this really hits close to home. And so what I hear from my child all the time is that this is what adults think it means to be inclusive, but it's not what the children think or feel demonstrates inclusivity. So I don't know if that's hopeful, but that's one of the things that we're constantly, like, trying to figure out in our own school district, like how to demonstrate inclusivity in a way that comes from the kids that are experiencing gender difference.
I'm going to step in here. Thank you for that input. One of the things that I think is fantastic about Photovoice, and I was sort of going to get to this later in the presentation, but there is no reason, because this is you gave us such a perfect entry point, Kelly. One of the things that's amazing about Photovoice is for students who might have trouble putting into words what kind of support they need or what isn't right about the support that they're getting, a camera might just be the way to do that. And I know, Kimberly, you and I had talked a little bit on the phone about this, but what you're presenting here is one slice of what life in this school looks like. And that slice is the perspective of the adults. And I wonder, and maybe Kelly, you have some thoughts on this too, what would the pictures look like if they came from the kids? If you asked, you know, how does inclusivity feel? What kind of sort of, how community minded is our school? And could you even imagine what some of those pictures would look like, or guess what some of those pictures would look like? And Kelly or anyone else, I'm certainly asking you that question also.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the pictures look like. I think that this is probably more powerful in the conversation with the kids than having the conversation, like showing them these images and saying, tell me your feelings about this. What does this say to you? Really opens up dialogue that I think is very needed. And before seeing these pictures and seeing this, like, kind of idea, I don't know that I even knew how to have that conversation. Like, we've been talking it around in circles for almost 2 years now, and it seems to still not be getting any better. But just this presentation with 3 pictures has made me go, hey, maybe this is where we need to start. So bravo.
Oh, that's great. That's cool. I do believe that one of the best versions of Photovoice is that sort of ability to bring all those different voices to the table. And Kimberly, it might be very powerful to have the different members of the community take on the challenge of take a few pictures of what community means at our school, or your experience of community in our school, or some version of that. Does that seem?
Yeah, so are you suggesting that from the teacher's perspective, potentially, and the students, and maybe a parent, like from the school community?
I would argue that the more voices and perspectives you can get in there, the better.
Okay.
And of course, you need a lot of students in there, right?
Yeah.
Because even though there's all these different takes on it, all of these different takes are in support of the students. And if they're not feeling that support, or that support isn't given in a way that is received well, it doesn't matter.
No. And that's definitely the assumption. Regardless of the signage, the feeling is not there.
Yeah.
Well, that brings up what I was thinking with any kind of messaging, whether it's words or visuals, you always have to consider the intent. So when you look at these signs, are they meant to be descriptive, or are they meant to be aspirational? Is it or is this who we want to be? And I have not been there, so I don't know the answer to that question.
And I would just offer, when you think about systems change, right? It's like the more perspectives that you have taking pictures of this concept. So it's like, what does inclusivity in our school look like, or whatever the prompt might be? That's giving you just a bigger, grander understanding of the greater system. And, you can never see a whole system, but bringing all these different images and perspectives forward helps us kind of get a glimpse as to what's really going on.
And I love what you said about sort of aspirational versus what's really there.
Yeah.
And I think that's true from the photographic lens also. In this case, you were referring to sort of the text and the context of the image. But when you tell someone to go take a picture of something that they think is great, that thing that they might think is great, Pablo, may or may not be completely emblematic of the whole situation. It might be what they see in that moment, or what they wish were great, or what they wish they could develop more. And so understanding the subjectivity that any text or any picture comes with is really important. Thank you for saying that.
What grades are these pictures of? Like from middle schools?
6th through 8th grade.
So I can't help but thinking of like the location of these signs, because it makes me wonder, who are these photos really for? Are they for the parents and the guests that oversee it? And if they're up higher, like at an adult height, then kind of that's who's really seeing it because it's at their eye level. But if it's for littler kids, middle schoolers, 6th through 8th grade, then I can't help but wonder, are these signs and photos, pictures displayed lower at the line of sight for our youth, which I can't help but wonder, like, who are these photos really directed to, and are they taking that into consideration when they hang them? I think they're beautiful. I feel like they're welcoming, but it's something that draws questions to my mind when I look at them.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. They are mostly up at an adult level, eye level.
I also want to second the location. The beautiful sign at the beginning with it said something about like this one right here, the comments one. Is that close to the clinic area, or is that just close to the like entrance of the school? Because one of the things I hear from my child all the time is that people feel like she has an illness, and so when she sees those signs like around a clinic, she immediately goes to that place of like opposition of like, there's nothing wrong with me. Stop putting everything next to that spot. Whereas if it was like scattered throughout the school, it would feel more of like, oh, this really is an inclusive environment.
Oh, that's interesting. This particular picture is in the front office. The office staff have it there, where the students migrate and flow through all day long.
I'm actually hearing a couple projects sort of bubble to the surface for you, Kimberly. One is sort of a reaction to signage on campus, and understanding the discrepancy between maybe what the adults feel and what the students feel, and where that might come from. And there's been some great suggestions here. Yeah. And also this idea of what is inclusivity, and the sort of adult looking in version of it, but then the different participants in the community, most particularly the students, and what their experience of that is. There's an awful lot to learn from 3 pictures, it turns out.
Yeah.
Cool.
Good feedback.
Any other thoughts before we move on?
The pictures are so close in, I'm wondering what the surrounding context is. So that's where my brain is going.
Meaning, Dana, you want to know where this sign is hanging, where it is in the greater context of the school?
Yeah, or just, you know, zooming out.
Okay. And yeah, that's a good point. So maybe taking some pictures where you can get a more whole picture of the environment.
I was very struck, Kimberly, by your "how might we" statement.
I wonder where I learned that.
Yeah, like, wow. I mean, you know, you have this question, right? And then here's these pictures and just, you know, describing what you were describing. That was very powerful for me to read that. So thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Cool. We will be very excited to see where you go from there. I think there's an awful lot in that. Awful lot in that. I'm going to keep going if you don't mind.
Please do. Thank you.
Our next images come from Lewis County. Thank you, Ed. I will go ahead and go through all of these, and then we'll go back and talk about all of them. Thank you, Ed. Do you want to tell us a little more? Give us your perspective on these.
The first photo here, in 2007, we had what they called a 500-year flood and devastated a great large areas of our county. And people just started helping each other like they've been doing ever since, you know, the county was founded and people started living here. And actually it almost, while it's normal every day and, you know, winter storms and that sort of thing, it's valuable. It almost worked to our detriment because we were so focused on helping each other, we kind of forgot to ask for help from places that weren't underwater. Well, 13 months later, we had a second 500-year flood, which proves 500 years is just not what it used to be. And with local people leading the charge, we called in help from outside, you know, counties that were still high and dry, and you know, weathered the second storm, no pun intended, much better. But it's kind of a comfort because we live in an area that people are used to helping each other, want to help each other. And it really adds to our preparedness levels, but mostly it almost guarantees resilience.
That's cool.
Yeah, we proudly agricultural. Our county's 2,500 square miles with only 76,000 population, so it's pretty rural and sparse. About a third of the population is concentrated on the Interstate 5 corridor in 2 cities, and then everything else is kind of looks like this picture. This is the county. We run from near the Pacific Ocean to the crest of the Cascade Mountains, and agriculture has always been and always will be one of the main sustainable sources of employment and tax base for our communities. This is a repurposed railroad. And put in here about, we do have a mild year-round climate. You know, yes, it rains a lot, but that's why it's green and pretty. And it keeps people from moving here, so it keeps our rural character. But year-round, we can, it never really gets too hot, never really gets too cold. So year-round, we can always do something outdoors. And this is a free opportunity that our state park system has put together from an old rail bed. That is really quite a popular recreational opportunity for families.
Cool.
This picture is because I've always marveled at the resilience of downtown Chehalis. It's a county seat, about 8,000 population. It's less than half the size of the largest community, neighboring Centralia. And yet its downtown core, you know, when small town downtowns have died nationwide over the decades, Chehalis continues to thrive. And I think it's part of it's related, as I state here, it's part of it's related to the neighbor helping neighbor philosophy, because what you see in this, you do not see a national chain anywhere in this picture or anywhere downtown. There are national chain stores in the community, but they have not killed the downtown as it has been in so many other communities. And you see by the number of cars here and the signs on the buildings, a little 8,000 population rural downtown has managed to thrive and keep going for over 100 years.
Thank you so much. I will say that I was hugely impressed with these pictures, in no small part because while your writing was beautiful and descriptive, it was almost unnecessary. I felt like your images were so evocative and really like the writing, we could tell what you were writing about just by seeing the image. I can tell it's a vibrant downtown. I can tell how important the rural aspect is. And so that was really, really nicely done. I would love
and
to
kind of an inside bit, you know, what do they call them, Easter eggs in the movies? The sign that you have there on the right-hand side, you see the street name Boisfort. That's the name of the richest agricultural valley, you know, community and most prepared community in our entire county. And that's the street they have their summer farmers hold their summer farmers market on.
Cool. How about some reactions to these pictures? I can go to any of them.
When I
a sense. Sorry, Sue.
No, please go ahead.
I see a sense of pride in these photos. You know, I obviously see rural, you know, and peacefulness when I look at them. But I notice that there's no debris or litter on the roads or around. The streets are clearly marked. Like, I feel like I see a sense of community pride when I look at these photos.
I agree with that. Sue, what were you going to say?
Well, I just, on the rails to trails, I think, you know, Ed, back to your earlier comment, like, I felt like, first of all, I had no idea, right? And it's close to me. And the idea that it's going to go out to the ocean, but it kind of struck me like, this is like an incredible tourism opportunity too, you know, like just the way you wrote it and, you know, all of that, except for the mild climate piece. But no, I thought they were great. It was really nice to get your perspective on this. So I liked them.
I especially like this picture too from a composition point of view. This picture is incredibly inviting. It literally leads you down that path. So visually, that's a beautifully composed picture.
And full disclosure, Danette shot that one, but I look at it and keep wondering what's around that corner.
Yeah. That makes for a good picture. That sort of you want to go further into it, right? I have a question just out of curiosity. If people who weren't the three of you were shooting these pictures, if you had a larger sample size of people shooting, and you said, what's in our community? What do you want to showcase, for better or for worse? Can you imagine a different set of pictures? What else, what views might you guess would come in?
Are you talking about in this particular town?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But that could be a wider question.
yeah.
Not
I think it may depend on where you're coming from. When I see these pictures and I read the narrative, I feel like it's home. Everything about these pictures feels like Humboldt County to me.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone were coming from an urban area, they may have a different lens on looking at the community and what they see as like unique from what they're used to.
Your comment about feeling like home, and the earlier question about how difficult was it to do these photos. Another reason it was really simple was because, you know, in 41 years, my wife and I have been to 40 states, 26 countries, and have yet to find anywhere we'd rather live than right here. And so it was pretty easy to think of images that tell why.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's very cool. If, like Kimberly, we were trying to get a more complete view, right? A sort of a wider picture, who else would you invite to take pictures? Who in the community would you invite?
Joanna, well, one thing that's coming up for me is around just this idea around sort of an appreciative inquiry, right? And a focus on what we love about our community. So that's going to bring a particular lens. So I don't know, you know, if your question is geared towards, because you said something, which I loved the question and the way you asked it, was about if others were to produce photos for good or for bad, you know, what might come in. So I'm just wondering, like, if, you know, based on the prompt and the initial inquiry, what would be a way to see a more holistic image of the town? Or people that are dealing with challenges that don't see the town this way.
Any thoughts there, Ed?
Oh, I could definitely take a different set of photos that shows our homeless camps, or shows the issues that our veterans population are having, or shows all manner of issues that we try to deal with here every day at Public Health. Yeah, I think the images, these images, I believe, represent the assignment we were given another assignment. Yeah, there's ample opportunity for completely other sets of images.
Absolutely, these pictures 100% reflect what we had asked for. And I actually remain curious if what wider group might answer the question, what are the community assets, even if we don't go into sort of the problem set within the community. I would trust there are people in the community who have a different opinion than you on what the assets are.
Definitely.
Can you anticipate or imagine what voices you would want to include to make it a bigger picture of that, a wider lens for that? Well,
we've talked. We're just kicking off a community health assessment project, and this Photovoice kind of came along at a great time. It's actually referenced in the NACHO MAP process for doing community health assessments. And sorry, we also have 80 trains a day that run and block. Yeah, 19 oil unit trains a week on average. So that would be one of the detriments that I would take a picture of. 3 million gallons of Bakken crude oil going by at a time. We've talked about within the community health assessment in our last core team meeting about using this Photovoice and coming up with subjects and sending it out to different community groups. And also in particular, we have a couple of folks here who do community youth programs in Centralia, the largest community. which is a rural community in the eastern part of the county, much smaller, and develop a process and let the high school students go around and do a Photovoice project.
Cool.
See what the world looks like from their eyes.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other thoughts from the group on any of the pictures or sort of the larger scene we could create here? Any other thoughts?
Well, I don't know if this is going to answer your question, but, you know, Dana and I were talking about this. I think, you know, when because I went out and took pictures, and I think it was an interesting mind shift, because when I've done this before, it's not necessarily been on the assets. It's more about what are the issues that are going on in the community. And in Olympia, there is a huge, huge issue that's happening with these managed homeless camps and mismanaged or unmanaged. And, you know, there's going to be a couple of community meetings that are going on, and people are pretty angry about what's happening in the way the community isn't dealing with it. There's just kind of, I think in a lot of the communities on this side of the state, there's just really some interesting, so I think, and watching, you know, what's going on. And so my mind went to wanting to take pictures there. So I think just that point really about the prompt is an interesting one, and then who's involved in the prompt. But then it became for me kind of this interesting, really kind of going on this journey of looking at what the assets are in the community. And Olympia tends to be kind of on the different side in some places. I mean, I think, anyway, it just has a long history of that. And so I think, you know, just looking for some kind of weirdness, because that's what I was drawn to. I'm going to just call it kind of that are just really part of the community and make the community what it is. So I really enjoyed it, and I didn't feel like it took a huge amount of time, you know, for me, because it was more just like I was out kind of enjoying and doing different things and just took a variety of different pictures. So anyway, that's,
I'm
you
going
know,
to go
was
to your
just,
pictures if you don't mind, Sue.
oh, sure. I
It's
mean,
like a perfect intro. Here we go. We'll take a moment and look at all of them, and then maybe, Sue, you can tell us a little bit about them.
This is the kind of stuff I'm drawn to.
Olympia. You're
That's
drawn
right.
to Olympia. Tell us
Yeah.
about these.
So this is a farm stand, and those are all Washington apples. And, you know, I hadn't been there since I moved back here, and I went there, and, you know, I mean, it's incredibly inexpensive. They're beautiful. They have this amazing array, and it's kind of a community gathering place. I think people go there and, you know, just to get their produce. They used to have a meat stand inside, and it's closed down now. So, you know, it was kind of fun to go there because I hadn't been there in a while. So, you know, just looking at, you know, these big, huge bins of these apples at incredibly inexpensive prices compared to grocery stores. I just thought it was, and it's a place that I like to go to. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this actually, and the one with the cat are inside the same place. It's a bookstore in town. It's called Orca Books, and it's kind of this icon in town. And I don't know if some of you have ever heard of Powell Books. It's kind of a famous bookstore in downtown Portland where it's like used and new, and you can bring in your books. So it's like this really eclectic place. But anyway, I was drawn to this because it's a place there where people can post, you know, different things. So as I was like reading all of these, like I was like, wow, this is a cool place to go if you're looking for information. You know, they had all kinds of crazy stuff in there. So I just was kind of drawn to it.
This is a really visual representation of how much is going on in the town.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and very different. I mean, you know, if you were to like loon in, like there was like off to the right, there was this whole thing about grief and trauma. And then there was this whole thing like this one, I think that's their tenets of the South Sound talking about gentrification, which is fascinating, like that, you know, they're saying that in Olympia. And so just, you know, just a variety of different things going on. There was a Buddhist meditation thing. So of course I joined that. You know, and so just like, you know, just kind of interesting things like here's a place you can go. So
Cool. There's a kitty.
and this is Orlando. Yeah, Orlando the cat, who's just kind of hanging out in there and kind of the resident cat. And I didn't realize like the picture, like if you look at the names of the books, I was like, oh, there's some interesting titles.
That caught my eye immediately, Sue.
I know. I didn't do that on purpose, but you know, I was just so like this cat's just hanging out there. So anyway, so, and this is a free library. There's quite a few of them in town, but this is literally right in my neighbor, like right around the corner from my house. And, you know, it always has books in it. And the people who I think nurture this live right across the street. And they're always decorating it with like really fun stuff for the different holidays. So you kind of like, oh, it's Halloween, there's a pumpkin, and they do all this stuff at Christmas time. They did all kinds of crazy things. So it's just fun, you know, and the fact that it's a free library, like anybody can go and, you know, take a book or bring a book, right?
It's great.
And this one is at Evergreen State College. So Evergreen, who I found out, you know, Joanna has a nephew that goes there. It's on the west side of town, and my understanding, but Joanna, like, you know, I think the way that they are set up is that they really cater to kids in a different way who might have different learning styles. So there's kind of like really different things that are going on as a result, like very kind of this artistic. And as I looked at that, I was like, wow, that's kind of quirky. But then I was like really trying to analyze, okay, what is going on here? But it's more like this is an artistic expression of somebody from the campus. But what does it really mean? Because there's this guy who's got a dog on a leash with pink boots on. And then you've got these people sitting on a couch with this princess with their arms open. And I was like, you know, does it really mean anything, or is it more really just quirky? So anyway.
I will second that Evergreen is a quirky and strange and creative place to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very evergreen.
Sorry?
I lived in Olympia for 20 years. It's very evergreen.
Thank you for these pictures, Sue. What are some thoughts and reactions to them?
Well, I had fun. Like it was kind of a journey to be like, oh, I want to go see what I can find. And there was a lot of things like I ended up taking pictures of. And I just found like the prompt kind of drew me to, like, it is kind of a quirky place, but it is what it is. And I like it, you know. So the process, I think, is really cool. And I am kind of drawn to that question about the prompt, right? Like just how that can really guide this. But anyway, you know, so nothing profound, but I just was, enjoyed it.
Good. Other thoughts from the group?
This is Chris. Can you guys hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And this is something I actually noticed between both Sue's photos and then the Lewis County photos as well, is how well each of them represents community without having a lot of people. When I was taking photos, I really struggled with how to get photos of people because the places I was taking photos are very populated, and I was struggling to really convey that in an effective way. And I think that both of the last examples really give you a sense of community without really focusing on people and community members, but they're the things they leave behind, the things that they nurture, the things that they frequent, the things that they do, which I think is really effective and really nice to see.
Great point. Really great point. It's hard to do. Any other thoughts? Cassandra, I didn't actually realize you were on. Oh, Dana, did you?
I was just going to say, I enjoyed them. I got a sense of the community and the space and the quirkiness.
Good.
Yeah.
Cassandra, I didn't realize that you had joined the call. Thank you so much. And thank you for the pictures you submit also. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
Would you mind if we did an abbreviated version of yours? I want to make sure that we have enough time to talk about how to use Photovoice, how to use the pictures we collect, and how to think about your Photovoice project. But I do want to showcase your images also really quickly.
Yeah, sure.
That's all right. So we'll go through them quickly. Here we go. Thank you for doing this. Do you want to share any thoughts, Cassandra, on any of them or all of them?
Sure. I think there's actually one more just before this. I know this is truncated, but
Thank you.
sorry. That's my dog, so I feel like she needs her moment. So I mean, so I live in North Park and I live in San Diego. It's a very urban space, and I think that people would kind of off the cuff, my neighborhoods sort of recognize assets related to commercial spaces and breweries and pubs and bars and restaurants and things like that. It's kind of gentrifying space, and that's kind of what's elevated. But I also live 2 blocks from this beautiful park. And so when I was thinking about assets and that really resonate with me personally, I really wanted to focus on that park and kind of look at all of the things it offers. This one in particular, it's my dog, and I feel like us being able to have space for her to run and play, and having a dog park that's so beautiful and lush and green at this time of year kind of keeps us both sane and happy and healthy and in a very urban space. I feel fortunate to have that. It's a very mixed use public space. This one, I don't know, I see your screens because there's a bike hiding in there, and just that it's, you know, I don't know if it's being kept there, if it's been abandoned there, if it's being sheltered there, but it's just that it's public and you never really know what you're going to see. And I like that. I like that it's not a protected, pristine, perfect kind of space. We're in the middle of our super bloom at the moment. So everywhere you look, it's just lush and green and flowers right now. And that's facing downtown. So right behind that tree and all that lush greenness, there's a bustling, big urban center and a big bridge that leads to Coronado, and all of it sort of secondary in our little space to the green and the nature that we can enjoy right now. And then the park is multi-purpose. There's a huge sort of sports complexes all put together. There's tennis courts, there's archery spaces, a velodrome, like baseball courts and all fields and all kinds of things there, parks. And so the next couple, I was just really kind of navigating all those spaces and just loving that you can see the remnants of how people actually use it. It's empty now, but you can see the sign. I don't know if you can see it very well, but the blue, I liked how it looked against the backdrop of the sky, and that, you know, you're like selling out of hot dogs, sold out of burgers, and that folks are really there, you know, cheering on their teams and their loved ones. People actually use this space well. And then the next one I think is the like Little League codes of conduct, which I thought was pretty funny. It feels like every aspect of this sports complex, there's little micro environments, and every little corner has its own set of rules. This one geared both towards kids, but also definitely towards their parents. And out in the stands, and you'll notice like there's totally different rules down by the tennis courts. There's totally different rules out by the playgrounds, and so I just found that it was interesting to figure out sort of the ways that we try to instill values in our respective micro communities within the park space. And then I think the last two are just trying to bring in people. That's a really common sight. So, kids lugging all their baseball equipment around with their parents, the coolers. That's most days in the park that you'll see very often. And then finally, there's a beautiful playground, and was able to get a kid and not use their face. That just shows that there's also other types of play as well.
Thank you so much. What are some thoughts and reactions to these?
This is Kelly Marie. I really liked that this displayed like healthy living. Like there was a lot of opportunities to live healthy in this area. When I first saw these images, I didn't know it was one park. I thought it could be multiple parks, and just thought. And then once Christina explained that this was one park in a very urban area, it's a great ad for like why we need parks everywhere. Like why every community should have these kind of resources.
Thank you, Kelly. Yeah. What else? Christina, I appreciate how you prefaced this, which was to say other people might notice different things about this community, including the commercial areas and the restaurants and the brew pubs. I like the park because you already anticipated, this is my point of view, and there's dozens of other ones out there. If we had made this a larger assignment in your area, we would have got a lot of different images, right?
Definitely.
Because I don't think looking at it, you would know this is in San Diego. So I think I love that too, Christina, that you said like, this is my park, and there's just a lot of amazing things going on there.
Yeah, and I also think too, like the park is an asset, but within it, there are also other cases to be made around what equity looks like in these spaces. Like there's a reason why we have tennis courts and not basketball courts. There's a reason why it's tucked away, in our neighborhood and not others. And so I think, it is a great ad for why these spaces are so important in urban settings. And also I think begs the question of, why don't more of our communities have opportunities like this as well.
I like your weather better than ours.
I was just impressed by how green it was.
Mm-hmm.
That's what struck
Everything is beautiful. Yeah.
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 I also feel like any one of these little areas, as you said, is its own microcosm and could have its own sort of exploration, right? Who uses the Little League versus who uses the whatever, and there's a lot more depth that could be drawn from this. There's a lot there.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
If it's okay with everyone, I am gonna push us forward so that we sort of have a chance to do a little bit of a wrap up and think about how, if we were doing this assignment, might we use these images? So if you get a collection of images, you want to think to yourself, what are these images saying? What are they showing, right? What is this group of images saying? And Kimberly, I'll think about yours when I say this out loud. Your images, as you shot them, say, we are trying to create an inclusive, inviting atmosphere, right? That's sort of your message behind that. And if we had a larger sample for all of these groups, if it wasn't just one person shooting for each of these areas, we would have a much more robust sort of message about what these images say. And it might involve some conflict. And that is perfectly okay. It's actually great to get a lot of voices and a lot of different ways of portraying a particular prompt, sort of imaging around a particular prompt. what's important from a curation point of view is to try and sort of say, what are all the points of views that these images are giving us, right? What can we draw from these? And from there, you might say to yourself, who needs to hear this message, right? What is the value in getting this message out? Who will benefit from hearing it? And there's a lot of different answers to that. It might be policymakers. It might be community members themselves who don't appreciate parts of the park, or sort of who are so down on the homeless problem that they forget how many great things are going on in their town. It might be students who are feeling neglected by their teachers and community because they don't feel like their atmosphere is suited to them and don't realize the attempts that are being made. So who is the right audience to hear the messages? And once you've identified that, who needs to hear these messages, how do you get that message to them, right? How do you do that? And I put a couple examples there, a gallery or display. And that doesn't mean, renting out a museum space. It might just mean in a hallway of a school, putting up all of these pictures, or, in the hallway of a hospital, or whatever it is, actually putting prints of these images out. Maybe it means setting up a website. Maybe it means writing a letter to the editor. Maybe it means creating an Instagram site for all of the hundreds of pictures that are coming in, creating posters, but really thinking about salient messages that these images can provide and where to put them, and if there's an appropriate way to reach your intended audience via these pictures. Does that make sense? And that would be sort of for a curated group of pictures, but there's a lot of reasons to use Photovoice that don't necessarily require having a curated group of pictures, right? Photovoice can just be used as an icebreaker or team builder. And arguably, that's a little bit of what we've done here. We've all showcased a little bit of our own selves and our own community. And I've actually learned a lot about each of you from that. And you can sort of use that to come together as a team, even if the pictures themselves don't go further than that. It's a great way to understand perspectives. And so in that way, it's oftentimes used as the first step of quantitative research because it's qualitative research, right? Getting a few opinions, soliciting a few thoughts can be the basis of a larger quantitative research project. And Kimberly, I'll point to your project again. Perhaps if you had a whole bunch of different opinions coming in on what your school atmosphere was like, that might inform any type of larger survey that you did, or any type of sort of further interventions, getting that qualitative research right off the bat. And again, completing the story or getting a more complete view of what's going on. You get to invite eyes you wouldn't otherwise have, and empower more voices. Getting opinions from people who haven't been asked. And finally, it can be used for advocacy. It doesn't have to be, like I said, but that is sort of how it was originally intended. That is, if you take it to its final step, you're using these images to advocate for something else. And it can be a celebration of success, right? There is this thought, and I know Sue alluded to this, that we use these images to showcase the negative things, to highlight the problems, to fight for change, but it can also be more like Ed's version, which is, look at all the amazing things we have. Let's celebrate that. Let's enjoy that. So that's a couple thoughts and ways to use Photovoice that may or may not apply to your community. And I would love to hear from you any thoughts or questions you might have about implementing this yourself as a facilitator. Does that sound scary and out of reach? Does it sound feasible and easy?
It doesn't sound feasible. I mean, it doesn't sound easy per se, but am excited to do something with this. I don't know what, and we have a meeting with our peer group this week and wondering if this might be an opportunity to build an icebreaker and brainstorm with the students that come. What might we do with this information, or who would we invite to the table to take pictures based on whatever the prompt is of inclusivity. So my wheels are turning.
That's great. I'm so glad to hear that. One thing I would say, as you formulate that and as your wheels are turning, is don't be intimidated by the process in thinking about the outcomes. Sending people out with a camera and a prompt that can create the process as it happens, right? You don't have to have the end in mind when you're starting. Other thoughts?
I'm struck by the comment made, right, where this is just one of us, right, that's doing this, and that when you invite in, like in your case, Kimberly, right, or Kelly Marie just sent a note, like the group who you might be working with to get all of those perspectives, and what could come of that could be pretty, yeah, I mean, I just am excited about that, you know, so.
And Keller Marie's comment, I think this is very innovative. I'm currently developing a portfolio of interventions for hunger in our community and may launch a voice project to move it forward. I was just thinking, you know, Sue and I did a project on with Napa on food insecurity, and I was just thinking about what if we had used Photovoice to bring in those perspectives.
Well, we did the graphic recording, but I think which was kind of, you know, but I think, yeah, you're right. Having the pictures of what it's actually like I'm thinking of the homeless person who's saying, I'm stigmatized by getting on a bus and I don't want to get on the bus, but that's how I'm going to go get food. And just like, I just have lots of visuals from what you just said, Dana, I think would be fascinating. Yeah.
So. Can give us 1,000 words, right? Yeah. Any other thoughts before we wrap up?
So Kelly Marie just said, I'm excited and scared all at once. That's awesome.
Cool.
I love that.
I would like to, anyone who is on this call or wasn't able to make this call, I certainly invite you to submit further pictures. This doesn't have to be the end of the conversation. This can absolutely be the beginning of the conversation or the midpoint of the conversation. By all means, keep them coming.
Well, I mentioned that we want to use this in our in our community health assessment project, and one of the answers that we want to get is, you know, what needs are out there, but the community members may think something different than what we as the healthcare community thinks. And we're actually looking forward to finding out what preconceived notions that we have that maybe don't exist out in the community or are contradicted by members of the community that are being affected by these issues. And I think Photovoice would be an interesting way of capturing that differentiation.
Oh, absolutely. I'd love to hear if you wind up using that and how that goes.
Yeah, I want to second that as well, because I think that it's very hard to contradict images. And I just love the spin. You know, we've used Photovoice in the past around advocacy, but specifically around need. And so when you say, like, this isn't working, here are potholes and this isn't fixed and here's what we need, they're hard to argue against that. So it can be really powerful. But looking at our assets and being able to say, we want more of this. Look at how we're thriving and look at what a valuable asset this is. It's such a great perspective to bring as well. And I really appreciate the space to actually think critically about what's great about our spaces and how we can uplift more of that or capitalize on what makes them great. Across our communities, and really, you know, have the irrefutable proof, you know, through the photos that they're valuable.
Joanna, Allison, are you still on?
Yes, I am.
You know, I'm curious because I know you guys are doing great work in Lake County just around homelessness, all kinds of things, and just wondering if your wheels are spinning or thinking about how you might use this at all. And I know you guys are also in the middle of your assessment, your community health assessment. So I was just curious.
Yes, of course. It's funny because absolutely my wheels are spinning, and it's hard to not, I mean, the possibilities are really endless with this, and that's what I love about, like, this really changes my lens for how to get in touch with folks and the whole community through simple photos. And I was even thinking about like a big community space with to help instill almost community pride with our town, because you know we're so rural. You go, if you drive around our community, you don't see a lot of local flavors like on the highway. And I was thinking, wow, how great would it be if we had like a revolving multi-agency or coalition of photos going on of actual community members, of things going on in our community. So yes, not actually initially directed around our homeless population, but just bringing our community more together was what I was thinking. But of course, it's very thought-provoking in all areas.
Any other thoughts? I think we're probably about ready to wrap up. Any administration stuff we need to take care of, Sue?
Well, I think, you know, just in terms of your time, I know Kimberly, you reached out. So as you're getting ready to embark on that, you know, just know there's resource and support. And so just for all of you, as you're, you know, trying to figure this out, just know that there's support. So.
Yeah. We're excited to hear from you about wherever you may take these ideas.
Yeah.
Cool.
Great.
Well, thank you all very much. Look forward to hearing from you about your endeavors.
Great.
Thank you so much, Joanna.
Thank you, Joanna. And thanks, everybody. Okay.
Take care.
Okay. Bye.
Hey, Sue, are you
Yes.
still on?
I am.
Hey,
Wait, I'm going to stop the recording.
Okay.